All right. So for week 29, at this moment in time, I'm not 100% positive how this week is going to work. As of right now, at the time that I'm recording this video in December of 2020, Tuesday is scheduled to be Remote Learning Day, which means I'm not exactly sure how they're going to split up these days. So I've set up the week with the thought that Wednesday will probably be an A day, and then Thursday and Friday will be B days as usual. But if anything changes, or if they move the remote learning day or whatever, I'll let you know. But I may have to move some things around if that does not go according to plan. So regardless, as of this moment, I'm intending for this George W. Bush press release to be scheduled for Tuesday, which right now is a remote learning day. If it becomes a class day, then that's fine. We'll talk about it in class. No problems there. But I'll read through that in a moment. And then Wednesday, when I see A-Day group, I have a video planned. It will not take our entire time, but it'll take up a good chunk. And then the rest of the time we can have to work on George W. Bush stuff. And then Thursday, we'll start new vocabulary, assuming that this is a B day. If it's not, I may have to move vocabulary so it starts on the right group. And B day group will watch the video that A day group watched Wednesday. And then Friday will be your second argument essay. So they're coming hard and fast, I know, but I'm just trying to really get in as much writing practice as possible and start kind of getting things down to time and feeling that time pressure. So I'll go over George W. Bush first, and then I'll talk about vocabulary after that. So in the fall, I had you guys read George W. Bush's speech that he gave on 9/11. So I wanted to explore the idea of looking at the same speaker, George W. Bush, but in a very different context, with some different issues at play, and even, his status as a speaker being somewhat different, because on September 11th, 2001, he was president. On June 2nd, 2020, he's obviously no longer president because his 2 terms are up. So I have a Space Cat worksheet here, exactly the same as the 9/11 Space Cat worksheet, but thinking about the things that we discussed for that particular circumstance and how these circumstances are different, particularly even from the speaker perspective. So this statement, which was released on the George W. Bush Center, as well as can I get rid of this? As well as online, was in response to the incident that happened with George Floyd. So this was the official statement that he made, given his status as a former president of the United States. Thought it was interesting, the things that he spoke about, the things that he chose to focus on, the things that he didn't mention. Sometimes the omissions in speeches can be as important, as the things you do say. And especially, if you were keeping up with news during that time period, the kind of contrast between, this very conservative former president versus, our conservative president at the time. Interesting, very nuanced responses. So anyways, I'll read his statement real quick, and then I'll have you guys just take it away on Space Cat. So Laura, who's George W. Bush's wife, of course. Laura and I are anguished by the brutal suffocation of George Floyd and disturbed by the injustice and fear that suffocate our country. Yet we have resisted the urge to speak out because this is not the time for us to lecture. It is time for us to listen. It is time for America to examine our tragic failures. And as we do, we will also see some of our redeeming strengths. It remains a shocking failure that many African Americans, especially young African American men, are harassed and threatened in their own country. It is a strength when protesters, protected by responsible law enforcement, march for a better future. This tragedy, in a long series of similar tragedies, raises a long overdue question. How do we end systemic racism in our society? The only way to see ourselves in a true light is to listen to the voices of so many who are hurting and grieving. Those who set out to silence those voices do not understand the meaning of America or how it becomes a better place. America's greatest challenge has long been to unite people of very different backgrounds into a single nation of justice and opportunity. The doctrine and habits of racial superiority, which once nearly split our country, still threaten our union. The answers to American problems are found by living up to American ideals, to the fundamental truth that all human beings are created equal and endowed by God with certain rights. We have often underestimated how radical that quest really is, and how our cherished principles challenge systems of intended or assumed injustice. The heroes of America, from Frederick Douglass to Harriet Tubman to Abraham Lincoln to Martin Luther King Jr., are heroes of unity. Their calling has never been for the faint-hearted. They often reveal the nation's disturbing bigotry and exploitation, stains on our character sometimes difficult for the American majority to examine. We can only see the reality of America's need by seeing it through the eyes of the threatened, oppressed, and disenfranchised. That is exactly where we now stand. Many doubt the justice of our country, and with good reason. Black people see the repeated violation of their rights without an urgent and adequate response from American institutions. We know that lasting justice will only come by peaceful means. Looting is not liberation, and destruction is not progress. But we also know that lasting peace in our communities requires truly equal justice. The rule of law ultimately depends on the fairness and legitimacy of the legal system, and achieving justice for all is the duty of all. This will require a consistent, courageous, and creative effort. We serve our neighbors best when we try to understand their experience. We love our neighbors as ourselves when we treat them as equals in both protection and compassion. There is a better way, the way of empathy and shared commitment and bold action and a peace rooted in justice. I am confident that together, Americans will choose the better way. All right, so just think about that speech, the particulars of it, and any contrast that you noticed to the 9/11 speech. Obviously, very different circumstances, but in both cases, responding in some official capacity to a crisis. All right, next thing I'll look at will be vocabulary, which hopefully will work out this week. We'll see. So your first word, technically two words, comes from the French. And the French have this annoying habit of not pronouncing ending consonants in words. So it is bon mot, which is a compliment or clever comment. So something witty, something, sassy perhaps, but something that is definitely intended to inspire a humorous response. The second one, lackey, is a lowly follower. So think like Igor to Dr. Frankenstein, someone who follows behind their master and says, "Yes, sir, yes, ma'am, of course," and does their bidding. The third one, melancholy, a prolonged feeling of sadness, pretty close synonym for depression. Several of you have used this word before, so I know some of you are familiar with it. The fourth one, antithesis, is the opposite of something. So we know what a thesis is, and anti, of course, means against, so kind of going against the main point, the main claim. So the antithesis of happiness is sadness. The antithesis of anger is calm and peace. The fifth one, malodorous. So the prefix mal always meaning something bad, and here we have the word odor in there, so it is something bad smelling. The sixth one, svelte, describes someone of a slender nature. So not like starving slender, but a healthy slender. Usually implies someone's in shape. They are eating healthy and exercising and in good form. The seventh one, benign, you'll usually hear in two contexts. If you're referring to just someone's kind nature, you could say that they are a very benign presence in your life. Or in a medical context, you'll hear the word benign when referring to cancer. If a tumor is benign, that is obviously much better than if a tumor is malignant. So benign meaning harmless. The eighth one, indolence, describes laziness. So just note that it's laziness, not lazy. So you wouldn't say that is an indolence person, but you would say that that person has a great deal of indolence, a great deal of laziness. The ninth one, progeny, describes your offspring, your children. So you all, of course, are the progeny of your parents. And someday, many of you will grow up and have progeny of your own. And the 10th one, facile, is easy. So when I say easy, I mean like not difficult. Every once in a while, I have someone try and use this word in a disparaging manner about a female, like, oh, she's so easy. No, 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 no. So it is something that is not challenging, something that is not arduous, that kind of easy simplicity. All right, and hopefully that is the week.